I mentioned it in the intro, Tolga, about Alnylam's global expansion.
Yeah.
Almost half of the company's revenues now are coming from ex-US markets. What can you say about the strategy that Alnylam followed to accomplish this? And what are some of the biggest challenges in building a large and growing global footprint?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I don't think I can take the full credit of the online expansion strategy because those actually who founded the company always had this really bold vision. And frankly, since I've arrived in 4 or 5 years ago, what I've been able to do is to actually embolden that strategy even further. Now, to your point, we do generate about 40-45% of our revenue. We're continuing to grow in terms of volume, about the same rate that you would see in the US. And frankly, it's mainly driven by how I believe we're approaching our expansion. And for a small biotech, I think we're punching way above our weight. And I don't think we ever look back about having that international presence. But we do it very thoughtfully and very carefully because actually it can put a strain on your resources having that geographic footprint. Uh, but the potential benefit of investing a little bit on your ex-US markets actually happens that you actually balance your revenue flow. So that's actually a big plus. You start finding opportunities where there might be some endemic regions that are less in the US. We certainly see that in our ultra rare disease area. And as you grow, you don't need to leave a lot of value on the table for a third party or a distributor that actually ends up actually really commercializing your product where you get to keep that value again to transfer it into your research and development. So with that outlook, what we did is we start looking at the globe, not just geographically, but actually we looked at it from an market archetype perspective. And what do I mean by that is if I look at geographies like Europe, there are actually many archetypes within that European geographies. You have developed markets like UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, where there's value that's being generated by good reimbursement system, good healthcare system, where you have access to new innovative therapies. But you also have markets where, I don't know, Turkey, Greece, Eastern European markets where access to medicine is less likely and where you don't want to probably spend a lot of time and energy in commercializing and have someone else do it because the juice is not simply enough, the squeeze. Now, when I look at Southeast Asia, I see more similar markets like the ones that I just described with you, like the distributor markets, like Vietnam and Korea and Singapore, where you actually, again, you may want to go through a distributor and not have your own, direct footprint. But then you have Japan, that actually very similar markets like Germany and UK and Spain. So what we did is we said let's look at the market archetypes. Let's combine those markets that are similar under one roof, and that's our international market. That actually spans through Canada all the way to Japan, including all major European markets. And then when it comes to those distributor markets, and we call them affectionately our partner in emerging markets, let's consolidate with few. So instead of having worked with like 10, 12 different distributors, let's consolidate them into few, 2 or 3 of them. So we can actually expand through them. That actually helps us to actually minimize disruption, deepens our relationships. And by the way, it allows us to make them more compliant. So we actually have these partner in emerging markets that we work with few of them and we expand through them. And then we obviously treat our US as our single most important market. And then the rest of the world, we call them partner in emerging markets. Now, the other category we have is our global rare business unit. So unlike our TTR franchise where we really focus on market by market opportunity, our ultra rare market, we actually consolidate our expense basis in a very small footprint. And our global rare franchise operates as an end-to-end business unit. And that actually gives us a lot of efficiencies and also allows us to focus on not all markets in ultra rare are equal. So, our global rare team may be focused more on Middle East markets where we see endemic on hyperoxaluria, but then we don't go and maybe work too deeply on France, for instance, because the opportunity may not be as big as some of the markets in the Middle East.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious about what factors you consider when you're deciding whether or not to partner with a distributor or, go as Alnylam. How do you make that call?
That's a great question. First of all, it's a very nuanced call, and there's no one single playbook. But what we look at, of course, the longevity and the growth trajectory of the particular category. For any particular time point, we say, look, do we have the resources right now? Because we're just about to become profitable this year, right? That's what we declared. So we still need to look at our sales and administrative costs. We look at then the complexity of the market. Are we going to be able to actually build the regulatory muscles that we need to have? And again, if the longevity, the sustainability of that growth is worthwhile, then we go after it. I'll give you one example. Actually, it's interestingly, originally Australia was a market where we said it's part of this sort of archetype where it needs to be under our international market because you have socialized medicine, you have access to patients, and it's reimbursed. So we said, let's go and work and have our footprint. Then our partner in the emerging market leader gave us a challenge. He said, I can actually make this product available faster, and I can actually do it with a lower cost base. So both teams got together, and actually we ran a business simulation. And we ended up actually saying, you know what, for now, let's actually go and distribute this market with a trusted partner that we already knew. And you know what? They beat those timelines. And we actually made one of our products available already in Australia, much faster than we would ever imagine if we were to go there faster. So as I'm explaining, there is no real one single playbook. There are principles that we look into, and then we make the decision accordingly.
That's really interesting. Who was the partner in Australia?
It's a company called Medison,
Okay,
which we actually partner with multiple markets.
great. What role, Tolga, does pricing play in mapping out market entrance strategy globally? I mean, do you think about country sequencing and price? How do you think about that?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, of course, to your point, it's a bit of an industry standard to make sure that we actually really understand and appreciate cross-border impact of how it's priced. And also, if we were to, sort of, be dealing with reference price impact and so forth. But I think what's really exciting about Alnylam, and again, this is an area where I like to think that we've been punching above our weight, is before we even commercialized our first product, we came up with a patient access philosophy. And that patient access philosophy has been actually sort of the guiding light for us. We're never going to increase our price above inflation. And if you look at our pricing over the years, now we have been commercializing products for the last 5, 6 years. We made very few price increases, if that ever, and that's always been under inflation. So that's been number one. Number two is we play to our strength of our science and our platform technology. We only promote and make our products available that are transformative as medicines. So we always keen on what's the value to the society? How am I going to actually sort of interpret that for the payer? And then the last but not least, what's the patient affordability is going to be? So it's one thing to put your list price, and to your point, in the US, we also have this rebates that we need to work with. It's an imperfect system. We don't like it, but that's the system that we're currently working on. And then it becomes this question about what's the impact on the patient? Is the patient going to actually have to pay the copay? Are there programs that we can make that happen? Are there things that we can work with the payers? We have been pioneering value-based agreements. Now, those value-based agreements are essentially about really putting your money where your mouth is. So if I'm negotiating with a payer and saying, look, we believe the patients will stay on therapy and they're not going to have to deal with the consequences of the disease, albeit maybe organ transplant or patient, if they stay on therapy, they're not going to be hospitalized less, depending on the label, depending on the agreements. I can't disclose a lot of those, but what I can tell you is we're now covering about 60% of those patients that are covered under commercial or Medicare Advantage through these value-based agreements. Roughly about 55%, 55 of those. So those really actually help us. So it's not just the cost or the price. It's how do you actually build the ecosystem around that enables us to actually go and provide the value narrative around the payers.